No.
Welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast.
Hello and welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast. I'm Mike.
And I am Russell.
Russell, we're in haunt season.
Oh, yes,
it has begun.
It's so awesome. It's so great.
There's so many things open right now, and it's still September. Tension, Creep, which we'll be reviewing. Bardo Thodol is still going on, which we'll talk about in this podcast. Not Scary Farm is open. 17th Door is open. Universal Studios, the Haunted Hotel in San Diego. When this podcast comes out next week, there's going to be even more opening. Delusion's opening. All the Vegas haunts are opening, like Freakling Brothers, Hotel Fear, Fright Dome, and also the Queen Mary, which we will talk about later as well, but for a different haunt reason. The hand gestures are what made that, but no one can really see them right now.
He was doing his creepy, awkward, spooky hand gestures.
They're not awkward. Let's get into it because we have fun things to talk about. The first thing is, we mentioned this on the last podcast, that Crossroads Escape Games is going to have something special for Halloween or for October. They're going to amp up the Hex Room with new puzzles, a different ending, and I can't wait.
I'm really looking forward to doing this again.
Like, this has been one of our go-to escape rooms when people ask us, like, hey, which escape room should we do? And it's like, Crossroads, Hex Room, do it. It's awesome. It's horror. It's scary. It's so much fun. And it's a different take on everything that you've known about escape rooms. And the fact that they're going to be doing something different and it giving us a reason to go back to experience it, I'm so excited.
We've always intended to go back to that escape room anyway, because it's one that you have multiple paths, sort of. And this is the reason we're now actually pulling the trigger and doing this, is because they're amping it up for Halloween.
Yeah, and I wanted to quote something that Maddie said. Madison Rhodes is the creative director, and she wrote that currently the Hex Room is a very creepy experience, but with this revamp, it will be even more terrifying, where you actually feel like you are in a horror film. We constantly want to push the boundaries of interactive experiences, and this revamp is going to blow people away. I mean, come on.
Absolutely, I'm in.
So down. And we're actually doing this next week.
Yes.
So the next time we record a podcast, we will be telling you about how amazing it is. Well, assumingly it will be amazing, because I feel like Crossroads can do no wrong at this point.
Yeah, they have certainly delivered on multiple levels every time we've gone down there. It's awesome. And even with their little mini room at the conventions, which was a blast.
Which they're still going to be opening a new room. It just won't be in October because they're focusing on the Hex Room. So
right.
Soon there will be 3.
Yes, and we will definitely be there for that one.
Yeah. So if you've done Crossroads Hex Room before, this is a perfect time to go back. If you haven't done it before, this is an even better time to go, because it will be something new and amazing.
Yeah, Mike, I 100% agree. I've actually been trying to get you to go back to the Hex Room, and you keep saying, no, I want a little more time, want a little more time. So I'm so happy you're finally willing to go.
Well, I want to forget things.
Yeah, actually, me too.
Not all of us have the luxury of being 80 and being forgetful like you, Russell.
I'm not 80. I am forgetful, though. I'll admit to that. I'm not that old.
So you should go. And to find out more information about Crossroads, you can go to crossroadsescapegames.com. You can find them on Facebook at Crossroads Escape Games. On Instagram, cross_roads_escape_games. And on Twitter, CR Escape Games.
Something Mike and I have done recently is sort of in the more immersive theater realm, and that is the third installment of the Devoted series of shows, which was called Devoted Forever. Now, we've mentioned this in previous podcasts. At Midsummer Scream and Scare LA, the 2 haunt conventions, Shine On Collective did very short sort of mini scenes that introduce you to a character named Cara, and Cara is, I guess the way to describe this would be, in love with you.
Yeah.
And she makes that very clear, and she's very devoted to you. Thank you. And she expects you to be devoted to her, I believe. So Mike, I did not know what to expect. The 5-minute scenes or whatever that we got at the convention were intriguing. They definitely hinted at darkness. This was definitely an immersive piece. You were moved from location to location. You were moved from room to room. You sort of... How would you describe this? You basically went on a date, I guess would be the way to put this.
Yeah, it was really interesting to me because you have to go somewhere to meet people to be taken to the date. And that was one of the things that I overthink sometimes. And when the people came and got me and told me, is like, we're taking you on your date, I was like, okay, are these her handlers? Are the, like, what's wrong with this girl that she needs people to come? Like, is she rich and these are her entourage or her drivers, like, coming to get me? You know, there were so many questions like that going through my mind. But yeah, the short answer is yes, you're basically going on a date.
And when you find out who those people are, makes everything so much creepier, I think.
Oh yeah.
But you go on a date with Cara. You go to we're going to try to not spoil this because we don't know how many elements of this show are going to be wrapped into the next show, which is coming in October, featuring this character. Let's just say you go to a date as if you're going over to someone's house.
Yeah, Netflix and chill.
Yeah, basically, minus the Netflix, even though it was chilling at points.
God, Russell.
Hey, that's your type of humor. I thought I was pulling a past one there. I will say this about the date. It immediately was creepy. It was immediately unsettling from the very beginning. And you met this woman who was infatuated with you, and the intensity level of the performance of the actress is to be applauded.
Definitely.
She brought this character to life in an extremely intense fashion. The show itself features everything from illusions to dance movement pieces to... they throw a lot into this half-hour show, and it works extremely well. It did for me. They did a really nice job of taking a very ordinary apartment, and then you basically entered Cara's, I don't know, memory world, dream world,
That's
fantasy
how I
world.
took it, yeah.
And they did the most simple of techniques, and yet conveyed everything, the pain, the level of her... I don't know. How would you describe her mental state?
Oh, she's nuts.
I always try to be kinder than you.
She's not a real person, Russell.
So, yeah, basically after about 10 minutes, you realize that she might be nuts. And what she reveals family history. She reveals trauma from her past to you. And she does it in a way of sort of moving you through memories. I loved all of this. I thought it was completely unique and creative. I don't know. I don't want to... Everything I'm thinking of saying, Mike, I feel like is too much of a spoiler.
Right. But I mean, the show's over though. And, you know, I mean, if we can say this ending, possibly maybe other things could be okay.
Okay. All right. Like, we haven't discussed about we have not discussed, Mike and I, between ourselves, the specifics of this show. But I want to point to something, Mike, that was sort of magical for me that they achieved. And there's a moment where the date, like, you're sitting there, you're in the kitchen, you're at a kitchen table, and she's telling you stories, she's asking you questions, and then she wants to sort of, like, relate some history to you. She wants to tell you a story about her past. And what happens is she does something where she basically pulls you away from the table and you kind of join her in a very childlike moment.
I love that part.
Okay, like, when you were a kid, did you... I think all boys do this. Like, you built forts out of sofa cushions.
Yeah, when I was a kid.
So it's play, that type of play. And in the middle of this show, they sort of do something that harkens back to building the fort in the living room. That technique of sort of, you know, going under the covers and going, you know, and like making your own pretend tunnel. Like, you actually do that with the lead character of the show. And she's leading you through this world. And what's going on is they're transforming the world around you as you're playing this playful little game with Cara. And that moment was so magical for me and so goofy and so fun. And at that point, she was telling me part of a story, and from the horror conventions where they had done some, preview scenes for Devoted, I was given a letter, and I brought the letter with me, Mike. I don't know if you brought yours.
No.
And she made reference to something that she had talked about in the letter that she gave me at the horror convention. So I brought the letter out, and I said, yeah, I remember you telling me the story. And she goes, oh, you do remember, and you brought the letter. And she immediately incorporated the fact that I had done that as part of the show. And the fact that I remembered meant a lot to her. And actually, it became a bit creepier because the fact that I was now feeding into her sort of nutso fantasy that I was infatuated with her the way she was infatuated with me, the fact that I remembered everything that she had said to me, and like that she had divulged this secret, and I remembered, and I was bringing it up now, and like she ran with it. Like, it was creepy. And then you start to reveal other stuff in the show where you stop building the fort, or I'm going to just call it that, but you creating the little fun tunnel under the covers and all of that stuff. And then you learn more about the family, which is a very, very dark past.
Well, and that fort scene was the transition to all of that.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like that was
beautifully done.
That was so well done. It was just like, because when you're in it, you're not sure what's happening. And as soon as that happens, like, you're in another place.
Yeah. And literally you've traveled 6 feet in the room, but they've taken you to another world.
Right. And another
time.
And yeah. That was the word I was looking for.
It was, more kudos to them. I thought it was a magical moment. So of the show, Mike, the whole family aspect of that, like, how did that strike you?
It was interesting because that raised more questions for me about her and what's happened in her life. Like, because what she's told you, but then once you see the family setting and seeing what happens with the family, like, that just leads to more questions. Like, what is she not telling me? Is there other things happening? Did other things happen to her that she's not talking about? Because seeing what her dad was like, what else happened? What did her dad do?
Yeah, her dad did not seem like a nice person. And I was wondering that exactly.
And is she just a reflection of her mother trying to just show unconditional love?
Perhaps. In other words, this is a really deep piece that leads a lot to your imagination and really does make you think. Really enjoyed this. Totally looking forward to whatever Shine On Collective does in the future.
Well, I mean, no, you can't end it like that. We need to talk about the ending.
Okay.
Because that was such... I was not expecting that at all.
No, neither was I.
That was such a shock, and it was such a good shock. And as soon as that happened, it was just like, oh my God, like, that's incredible. But when I talked about it, like, many people looked at me like I was crazy, thinking like, that's what you got from that scene. Basically what I got from that scene, and I'm going to say it just because we said it earlier, we recorded an interview with Anna and Marley, and we said it, and they said it was okay to say it, so we're going to say it.
Anna and Marley are the writer and director of the Devoted series.
Yes. And basically what happens is a person comes up behind you, which could be Cara in her memory, and slices your throat. And I took that as I was killed. Like, I was in her memory, but that's it. I was done. Like, I wasn't a family member. I was me, and it was her slicing my throat.
Do you think it was a previous boyfriend?
See, and that's where it can go so many different ways. It could have been a previous boyfriend. It could have been you. She could have been daydreaming. Like, this is what I'm going to do based on this.
Well, it's like I said this in the interview that we recorded, but I was so excited when you brought that up, because I had not occurred to me in any way, shape, or form that was potentially what was going on. But when you said that, one of the things I thought was, okay, does that mean that the whole thing is a memory play and we're actually ghosts?
Right.
That you as the patron for this show is actually part of her memory.
Almost like a Christmas Carol, like you're traveling back and seeing it.
Yeah, so I mean, is like you called her nuts? Is Cara nuts, and we're literally inside her brain? That is an interpretation, based on what you said. That was one of the things. Like, wow, that's so disturbing.
And that's what's so cool, because you can interpret it any way you want, and there's no wrong answer.
You get the impression during the show that violence is part of this family.
Yeah,
and my interpretation was originally almost symbolic in the fact that Cara was trying to destroy the past to be well, or to be rid of the ghosts of her parents, the ghosts of any past relationships, whatever. And that's why her devotion is so strong, is you are the only remaining hope. And in her memory, if she destroys you, it means she's not well. It means she can't move on. So I was going in a very like metaphysical, psychological, fantasy, symbolic version of that. And when you said, no, it's real, my throat was slit. Like when you went there, like, holy crap, it's such a, it's like, that's such a sadder ending to me, because that almost, it's so bleak.
I bring the best out of you.
You bring the bleak out in me.
That sounded weird.
Oh, but yeah, I'm so, and this is one reason I like talking about stuff with you, Mike, is just like you said that, and I was like, okay, now I have to rethink everything. It's awesome. I love the fact that Shine On Collective is creating something that has so many levels and is so open to interpretation.
It makes me wonder what's going to happen for the October show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine where they would go, because here's the thing, Mike. At the end of Devoted Forever, they tried to sort of put on a happy face.
Yeah.
Like two of the characters who you first meet come back, and they tried like, oh, like you're part of us, like you love Cara, don't you? Like they really try to gloss over the fact that there's some dark crap in this family, and that you've been now like exposed to a little bit. You know that there are dark secrets in this family, and yet at the very end of that show, like two characters are trying to put on a happy face and say, oh, it's not as bad as you think.
Yeah, push it down. It didn't happen.
Oh, that's the perfect phrase. Push it down.
Yeah.
Like hide it. Like don't face this. So I have a feeling, I hope the show in October, I just rips it to shreds.
All hell breaks loose.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
As we previously mentioned, we do have an interview coming up with the Shine On Collective's Anna and Marley. We're going to put that in the next podcast on a podcast of its own, because it's a really good interview, and it's about an hour long. And it'll give you some insights on their shows and what to expect coming up with the Devoted show.
But if you'd like to learn more about them now, on the web, go to shineoncollective.com, and on Facebook, look up the Shine On Collective. And for Twitter, Shine On Shows.
And another immersive piece we've done recently is Bardo Thodol, which is from Screenshot Productions. This is one that had a preview at Midsummer Scream, and based on what happened at Midsummer Scream, I was all in for this. I was so excited. If you remember, the preview at Midsummer Scream was where they buried you and you went through your death. So Bardo Thodol, the show now, takes place after your death. So you already died. So this is parts 2 through 4, whereas the preview was part 1. And based on what happened in the preview, at first, I really wasn't expecting what happened inside. But once I started thinking about it after the show, it all started making a lot more sense, because you are already dead. You died at Midsummer Scream, and this is your journey through the afterlife, through the different realms, and through the different scenarios of what and who you could possibly meet. We're not going to talk a lot about spoilers because it's still going on right now. But I really, it's weird. Like my first initial thought after leaving was, wow, I didn't expect that. But the more I thought about it and the more I thought about the interaction, like, I really liked it, even though it wasn't what I was expecting. And usually if you have a preconceived notion of something and it doesn't fall into those parameters, you end up not liking it. But I really did like this once I started thinking about it more.
I don't know if I went in with preconceived notions. I just was this was one of those shows I didn't know what to expect at all. And I agree that after Midsummer Scream, which I enjoyed so much, I wasn't exactly sure where he would go from there. And the fact that you fill out a lot of information before going into this show. They ask you some very personal questions. And for me, some of those personal questions did come into play in my show. I think every person who goes to the show is getting a slightly personalized experience, particularly in one sequence in particular. And that was actually very special for me.
Yeah, based on the information they asked for, I think I was expecting more from that. The things they asked for that were not answers to questions,
yes,
those things, I'm making hand gestures to Russell because I don't want to say just in case, but those did not come into play. And by asking for those things on top of the questions, I was expecting something so much more. And I was expecting to get emotionally wrecked in that show. And by not using those other things, I didn't get that emotionally wrecked that I thought I was going to be. And I was kind of not looking forward to it, but expecting it and looking forward to it.
I think we have to clarify a little bit. What Mike is referring to is you do fill out sort of a series of essay questions before the show, and you're asked to provide certain things for use in the show. I was the same with you, Mike. The things I provided, the information was used, but that was all. However, I do know other people who, for particular reasons, the things they provided did come into play.
Oh, okay.
And were used. So I think it was a personalized choice for each patron. I think I know why mine weren't used, because of the direction of the final sequence, which is the personalized chunk of this. It would have been unnecessary for him to, because the information that how he was interacting with me, and by he I mean the character in the show who was speaking to me, that interaction was enough. That's all that was necessary. So I think it's personalized for each person, because I know someone who did provide them a bunch of stuff that did come back.
Right.
Wow, we're being very vague.
Yeah, that's what happens when you review a show that's still happening.
Yes. But I agree with you, Mike. I really enjoyed this, but it's one of those shows that just stuck with me for several days.
Right.
And
there's so many different reasons as to why. The character you meet and the thing, something happened that I've never seen in any sort of show. But
I was about to point to that same thing.
That was very effective, because it's not meant to be scary, but the first time it happens, it's like, whoa, whoa.
The show becomes very loud at one point. I guess that would be one way we could hint at. Like, you find yourself in the middle of a very loud, raucous environment, and it was thrilling for me.
Yeah, I really liked that, I guess, realm.
Yeah, and at that point, your vision is limited. So, but there's enough light that you can see shadows moving around you, and so you're being bombarded with this amazing sound, and you see light and shadows changing around you, and it was actually somehow emotionally engaging and moving in a way that surprised me, and I absolutely loved that aspect of the show. Again, this is something that just stuck with me for days. Mm-hmm. And the Screenshot Productions is run by someone named Nicholas Sherwin, who Mike and I have known for a while. And I don't know about you, Mike, but I was able to detach. I knew that Nick was there. I knew that, it's one of those situations where we run into where the people behind the haunt. But I was able to detach, and I really thought it was a very touching, moving experience that he created. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the personalized aspect of it, and the fact that he obviously was trying to do that for every patron based on the questions asked in advance. That's a really unique direction.
Yeah, and time consuming. I can only
I can't
only
even
assume.
imagine.
Yeah.
I have talked to several people who, one minor technical glitch that I had, which I want to ask you about, Mike. I had a really hard time understanding the audio a couple of times.
I did as well, and it seemed like it was nonstop. And so you're trying to focus on what's happening in front of you, but also trying to listen to the audio and concentrate on that, but also participate and concentrate on what's in front of you. So it definitely gave me like an ADD type moment where it's like, okay, I need to listen to this, but I need to focus on this. And it's like, I don't know what to do. So at one point, I just stopped listening to the audio to focus on what was happening there in the moment.
I literally exactly what you just described is almost identical to my experience. I felt overwhelmed. And then there was a moment where you're asked a question, and I was so focused on what was happening right in front of me that I missed the fact that I had been asked a question, and it had to be repeated. Like, I'm supposed to answer that. Oh, okay. So that and I had a little. You were instructed to move at one point, and I thought the show was over. Because I couldn't understand, and I kind of heard something about moving, and I heard part of an instruction, but I didn't hear it very clearly. So I actually was heading toward the exit, and they had to oh, wait a minute, no, Russell, wait, you need to go over there. So and I've heard several patrons say that the audio was very hard to understand at that point in the show. So that took me out a little bit, but overall, I really commend Screenshot Productions on what they created with this.
Yeah.
And in a very small space. Did you have a moment where you felt you were moving when you weren't?
No.
Okay. I became disoriented in the dark. And I'm talking really early in the show, like when you first get into the room. And I had this moment where I don't know what it was, but I lost perspective. I had no point of focus that I could latch onto. So I actually had to stabilize myself because I really felt like I know I'm standing still or sitting still, and yet I feel like I'm moving, which I thought that was that's really cool. That's an awesome feeling. So yeah, and look, these are minor quibbles. Overall, really, really enjoyed this show.
Yeah. And nope, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I think Screenshot is doing something, again, completely unique. We are very lucky right now to have several companies that are just really carving very individual personalities out. And I think Screenshot is one of those.
And that's what's cool, because when you go to a Screenshot show, you don't leave saying, oh, that was just like this or just like that.
No.
There's going to become a time in the future where someone is going to go to another show and be like, oh, that was just like Screenshot shows. They're setting a bar for what they're doing, and it's such an incredible time to be here and be a part of this, because like right now, I feel like we're in a really, really magical time, as lame as that sounds, but there's so many new companies coming out, like Shine On and Nick and Screenshot, and even the Tension Experience for what they're doing, VestCorp, yeah, on top of all of these tried and true haunts and theater companies like Delusion and Speakeasy and things like that. All of these things are happening, and all of these things are being created, and we are so freaking lucky right now to be in here at this time in this moment.
Very well said. I completely agree with you. And one of the things that I think about Screenshot is their strength is nobody is doing anything like them. They are so completely unique. And to be totally honest, I don't think they're for everybody.
Right.
It's if you go into this wanting a haunt, I think you're going to walk away disappointed. I think you have to walk into a Screenshot Productions going, this is exploration.
Yeah.
And that's just cool in my opinion.
So Bardo Thodol is still running right now. in October, their new show, The Rope, is going to be happening, and that's going to be happening at the Think Tank Gallery. Tickets are on sale now, and you can find more information on Screenshot Productions and The Rope and Bardo Thodol at screenshot.productions, on Facebook, Screenshot Immersions, on Instagram, screenshot.productions, and on Twitter, Screenshot Art.
It wouldn't be an episode of our podcast without mentioning an escape room, right, Mike?
Right. This one is not a room, though.
No, it's not.
It's a bus.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to test out Escape Bus, which is a brand new escape room, and we really, really did have a good time. This is a fun room. The story behind Escape Bus, when you first get into it, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to read this from their website.
Oh, okay,
It's going to
excellent.
be a lot better than I could ever put into words.
Excellent. Or me, I'm sure. Go
But
for it.
should I do it in like a trailer kind of way?
Oh, please do.
The year's 2033. You are part of an elite hacker consortium, and you've been caught. Now you're on your way to prison, locked away in a maximum security transport that formerly housed working police escorts. Today, the transports are all automated, and there has never been a breach. You'll have to work together, use your surroundings, and outsmart the bus if you ever want to see the light of day again. Will you breach the firewall and escape before your time runs out, or will you spend the rest of your days in a tiny cell?
Not bad. When we first learned about this, one of the first things I said to you was, wait a minute, high-tech security, hackers, bus. I didn't see how all of that was going to come together.
Right.
And it comes together really, really well.
Yeah.
You get set up instantly with the story and the premise once you enter the escape room, and it makes sense. And there's a lot of fun stuff in this thing, man.
Yeah, one of the things that I really liked about this is they were really outside of the box solutions to the puzzles.
True.
And, the very first puzzle, for example, which we are just slapping our foreheads still, but it's one of those things where you are, I'm not going to say programmed, but you're programmed to see something and think you have to do something. And as soon as you let go of that, you'll be fine.
Yeah, we overthought the beginning of this escape room so badly. And it's one of those things where it's the simple solution right in front of you that is correct. And we missed it completely.
Yeah. I mean, we did get it.
Yes,
And we
eventually.
should say up front that we did escape.
Yes, we did.
Hooray.
No, yeah, actually we escaped with what? I think we had like 10 minutes left on the time.
I think so.
Yeah.
It was something pretty good.
And it's like a 40-minute room, correct?
Yes.
So once you get into it, and again, we're going to be very, very non-spoilery here. I think the strengths of this are it's a very character-oriented room. The clues are based on things you learn about the transport bus and who normally mans it. Mm-hmm. Because as Mike mentioned in his trailer voice, that the setup is that this is now a high-tech security facility that you're going to, and basically they have laid off the human element. They're eliminating the human element from this equation of transporting the prisoners. So, but the remnants remain inside the transport bus where you are locked in. So you have to figure out the personalities, and you have to learn clues from the personal lives of the characters who are no longer working for this transport bus. I don't think I'm giving anything that's really spoilerific by saying that. Once you get into the room, you will start to see the pieces of their lives. And one thing that I loved about this, Mike, is they actually give you so much information, and I think some people would probably get lost very easily because there's a lot of information. We had to really be judicious about, wait, this looks extra. This looks like we should focus on it. This looks like it may be important. But it's all based on the characters that you are learning about.
And I also want to point out that it was just you and I.
Oh, yes,
in that
that's
bus.
true. Just the two of us.
And I think they can have a max of 6 people in there.
I believe so, yeah.
But even with 2 people, I mean, granted, we were scratching our heads at a couple points, but as soon as like it clicked, it clicked.
And also, this is a fun room as far as you're not just in a bus. Like, there are things to discover. There are lots of things to discover as you're working out the solution for this.
And this is one of the more techie type rooms in general that we've seen. Like, there's a lot of technology being used.
Well, as I said, that's what didn't make sense to me at the beginning. Was they said bus and high tech. And
I don't even mean as a story. I just mean as in puzzles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As a puzzle, definitely. There's you're interacting with technology, definitely. This is a relatively new company, and Mike and I were lucky enough to go down and try this out very, very early on. And we were lucky enough to meet Jonathan and Tyler, who are behind the escape bus. And Mike, you seem to always have your recording gear.
Except that day. We did this with very little sleep. Thanks a lot, Tension. But we were able to still get the interview. We had a phone interview with Jonathan, who is the co-founder and game master of the escape bus. He took the time out of his vacation to speak with us. So, Jonathan, thank you so much. Hopefully you didn't ruin anything on your trip. But yeah, so here's an interview with Jonathan from the escape bus.
Hello.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going? This is Mike and Russell from My Haunt Life.
Hello.
Hey there. Sorry if there's a little bit of noise. I'm outside right now.
Oh no, is this a good time still?
Yeah, this is fine. I'm just trying to walk away from the major street here.
Okay.
All right. How are you guys?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Visiting my sister in Chicago. It's been a nice weekend.
Oh, awesome. We were just actually talking about Chicago because one of our friends is in town.
All right.
So thank you, Jonathan, for taking the time to let us interview you. Can you give us a little background on the history of the escape bus?
Sure. Well, Tyler is the co-founder. We've always been closet nerd types. We love our board games. We love our video games. So when we found out about escape rooms as a general entertainment thing, we jumped right on it. This was a couple of years ago. And we went on a trip to Europe about a year and a half ago, and Budapest was our last stop. And we recalled that Budapest was the unspoken capital of escape rooms, and we did 2 in one day. And then we went out for dinner and thought, you know what? We could probably make an escape room. I think we're savvy enough as puzzle people and business people to make this really work and make it good. And that's kind of where it all started.
That's awesome. So we played it, and the hacker angle, the hacker storyline on, for being on a bus, it seemed pretty unique to us. So can you tell us how you came up with that story?
Yeah, it came from the fact that we are in a bus. While we were trying to find a place to put the escape room, Tyler was doing a lot of real estate outreach, and we couldn't quite find a place that was big enough for the right price. A lot of property owners didn't like the idea of people being, quote-unquote, locked in a room. There were some places that required build-outs like sprinklers for fire and things like that. So eventually we got the idea to do it mobile, which of course wouldn't require any sort of paying rent or any build-outs and things like that. So my job as the game master, so to speak, was to come up with the right puzzles for what we're doing. And I thought, and I have a background in screenwriting, so I thought, you know what, we have a bus here. What story can we tell in a bus? We wanted to make sure the game felt organic. We wanted there to be a reason why you're in a bus. It's not the zombie apocalypse room in a bus. So we came up with the story of you're being sent to cyber prison, and therefore you're a hacker, and you have to hack your way out of the bus. We knew we wanted there to be a cool technology angle, so putting technology with prison transport, and boom, you've got it.
When you first contacted us, and Mike and I were discussing the story that setup that you just described, I'm always big on story. I love the immersive environments that escape rooms can provide, And certainly being on a bus, like, you've nailed it. You're certainly in a very, very immersive, specific environment. But one of the first things I said to Mike was, hacker on a bus, that doesn't make sense to me. And I got to compliment you guys that you literally solved that problem for me in the first 60 seconds. Like,
oh, great.
That opening immediately, like, oh, I totally get this. I'm totally in. Because you just described, like, the environment itself, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to what a hacker angle would be normally. But I really love the way you incorporated the idea of the high security prison, the privatized prison. You're touching on a whole bunch of stuff that is actually going on in our conversations about, our country, and yet you're putting into this escape room in a way that's pretty darn unique. I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's just about the biggest compliment you could give me, which is you felt like it made sense. I mean, my goal specifically was to move away from, I solved the puzzle and I got a combination lock and I opened a box and now I have more junk and I have to put that junk in order for another combination. But it doesn't make sense. And my goal specifically was to make it make sense. So I'm glad it made sense to you. It means a lot to me.
Well, also, once you, I have to be careful because Mike and I do not want to give spoilers because we had such a good time. But once you get deeper into the story of Escape Bus, I love the fact that the clues you are using are very personal to people involved in the story. And you're right, it's not just solving a puzzle. It's like you're solving a puzzle using personal information that you have to figure it out and you have to find. But it is related to characters.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We didn't want you to feel like you were solving random puzzles. I've always had the idea of, I'm locked in a room, I have to use the tools around me, and I have to use my intellect to get out. So what would this person's locker combination be? What would be the way they thought about things if this were a functioning bus? So that's the angle that I took when designing a lot of these puzzles.
And that's one of the things that I really liked, because exactly what you said, you didn't want just normal, oh, I solved this puzzle, here's the next thing. I like that you actually have to put in work and you actually have to use your brain to figure something out. It's not like, oh, here's a pattern that is missing a number. Okay, that number is now the new clue. Based on the what Russell just said, the personal touches from the characters, you need to think outside the box in order to solve things. And I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We want you to feel like you're part of it. We want it to kind of live and breathe. It's more than just a room. It's the escape bus.
So you're a fairly new escape bus. You've only been running a few weeks. What have you seen in the last few weeks that you loved, or things that is like, oh, that hasn't worked, we need to change that up, or problems or issues along the way?
There have been some fun, and fun is in quotes, technical hurdles. Our engineer is a genius. He's great. But, of course, the more tests we do, the more ways we can refine it. So we've had to tighten up the tech a little bit, and we wouldn't have found that out if we weren't doing group after group after group. So that's been really important. One thing that I've loved a lot is watching the people approach the puzzles we designed and seeing how their brain approaches it. Because we design them in such a way, and we think, oh, yeah, this is obvious. Like, they'll see this in 2 seconds. But then watching a group of 3, 4, 5, 6 people discuss what we made and seeing them think about it in a completely different way, and it's torturous having to sit there and watch and think, oh man, you're so close, get there. So that's been really, really a joy. And the last thing is we want to take the story even deeper. We had some friends come, and they're all film kids just like I was, and they started going off on the story of the bus and what it could be and all these crazy things that were great ideas, and as we grow, we definitely would like to change the puzzles a little bit or add even more story in there just to make it that more immersive. So that's 3 different answers to your one question.
That's awesome. Thank you. So because you are a mobile bus, Do you have a standalone location when you're not traveling that people can come play, or is it, right now, is it only about traveling to places or having the bus be rented out?
It's a good question. We have the bus parked in a lot, in an RV parking lot in Lake Forest, and if people are willing to make that trek, we can make it happen. They can play the game right in the lot. We have a generator there. We can make everything run. But generally speaking, the two main ways you can try the bus is, number one, check out the website, which will have a short-term calendar of where we're going to be. We try to park in different locations around Orange County and LA, and if one happens to be in your neighborhood in the next couple weeks, you can book it right there. And the second way is, and we've gotten a lot of inquiries for this already, it's happening so fast, some corporate events, corporate bonding, corporate retreats. A lot of places like the idea of the teamwork and putting their employees in close quarters where they have to communicate. That seems to be a desired thing among employers. So we've been getting some bookings for private corporate events. So the private corporate event and parties and the public bookings are the best ways to play. But again, it's parked and it's able to be run when it's parked. So if people want to come down to our lot, they're more than welcome.
Cool. That was the majority of our questions. So do you have anything you want to say, any thoughts, any shout outs, anything like that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Tyler Russell, who is my co-founder, we make a great team. We have a very special friendship where we're not at each other's throats all the time, even when things are getting busy and crazy. So, of course, big shout out to him and his family and my family for supporting this crazy idea, and all our friends that came to play test. It's been great. And the media response, you guys, thanks so much for coming. A lot of people came out. So just a shout out to everybody that thinks this is a good idea, because we're proud of it and we're glad everybody likes it too. And that's really what we're doing it for. I want to put smiles on faces.
Well, I think you certainly succeeded with us. Mike and I had a great time playing the room. And again, it's like, I don't want to be specific as to why, but there's a lot of fun little surprises inside the escape bus that just I'm sure you were probably watching us, but there were numerous times when Mike and I looked at each other and just smiled, like, this is cool, like, that's fun, this is cool. So and
yeah,
you were talking about the immersive aspect of the puzzles. Another thing which Mike and I talked about a little bit afterwards, I also like about this room that it's one of those rooms that if you get information, it's I don't know, Mike, would you consider this linear? It's not really.
Not really.
But even though it's not a linear room necessarily, non-linear, I think, would be an unfair judgment to pass on it, because everything is so intricately related through the characters. And one of the very first things I did was I stumbled upon a piece of information, and I absolutely was convinced it was going to be important, and it never worked. And then finally, much later in the experience, Mike found a piece of information that when combined, it worked. And that's a compliment to you guys in the puzzle design. And the fact that what we were speaking of earlier, that it's all character-based, it's like hats off to you. It's a lot of fun. And I wish you all the luck in the world, because another thing is you don't have a lot of competition with the mobility. Very glad to hear you're making the corporate bookings, because I know that's definitely a viable audience for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, you guys probably know Crossroads, just a fantastic pair of escape rooms down in Anaheim. And actually, the bus is parked there right now. Tyler was working with the Crossroads guys to do a little cross-promotion, no pun intended. So right now, today's September 24th, the bus is there, and we're already making really great relationships with some really great escape rooms. So we're really happy to be accepted by the community.
That's awesome. What's next for you? Like, what are your future plans? Do you have more rooms that you want to create, more promotions, everything?
Yeah, this could go in so many different directions. Of course, more rooms would be great for me, because I love designing them and I love watching people do them. For the short term, we're going to be growing this one as best we can with corporate bookings, public bookings, all that. But I would love to, sometime down the road, either franchise the game design out for other people that buy buses, or buy another bus and have another game in a different bus. Another suggestion I've heard was to once we're down the road, is have a brick-and-mortar location that's one game, and then the bus is exclusively for mobile opportunities. So there's a lot of different ways to go, and Tyler and I are always coming up with different game ideas or elements of games that would fit into something in the future. So we have a nice running list of crazy ideas. But for now, don't want to grow too fast. We've got something good here, and we're going to focus our time and energy on that.
Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time out of your vacation to talk with us. Like we said earlier, we really, really enjoyed the room, and we look forward to seeing what you have next. So thank you so much. Thanks
a lot, you guys. I really appreciate your enthusiasm and willingness to add us to your busy schedules in life and on the podcast. So I really appreciate it, and thanks for the interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a good day.
So, Jonathan, again, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us.
He was on vacation. That was very nice of him.
Yeah. And for more information on the Escape Bus, you can go to theescapebus.com, on Facebook, The Escape Bus, on Instagram and Twitter, also The Escape Bus. Now, Russell.
Yes?
We did a podcast a little bit ago saying the end of indoctrination for the Tension experience. And
yes.
It was going into Ascension.
Yes.
And then we had our interview with Darren and Clint, who were behind the Tension experience.
Yes.
And we thought it was over. And it hasn't been over.
No.
So after our interview with Darren and Clint, literally right after it, maybe 10 minutes or so, what happened, Russell?
My phone rang, and it was a number I didn't recognize. And I picked it up, and I heard voices, and I couldn't quite identify it. So because you were standing there, Mike, I put it on speakerphone, not realizing what it was.
Right.
And what did you hear?
I heard a lover's quarrel.
Just kidding. Oh, man. Well, I did not expect you to say that. No, it was Clint and Darren sort of arguing about...
Yeah, like I said,
a
lover's quarrel.
What they had revealed
right
in our interview with them. So we had just done this interview about the Tension experience with Darren and Clint, the creators of the Tension experience, and it was sort of like they butt-dialed me accidentally, and I overheard them saying, like, no, you shouldn't have said that. No, you shouldn't have said this.
It's like, no, you're already out. It doesn't matter.
Right, which refers to the reveal that these are the people behind Tension experience and whether they had revealed too much and that whether they should have done our podcast perhaps. Like, there was this whole argument going on, and this went on for, I don't know, almost a minute, I think.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the phone disconnected. So Mike and I looked at each other and went, okay, that has to be a prank.
Right.
Like that absolutely was a prank. You know, they actually said in the interview that they used to like to prank call people when they were younger. So Mike and I just looked at each other and went, okay, that was a prank. And then my phone rang again. And this time it was no caller ID. And because what had just happened, I immediately put it on speakerphone. And do you remember the guy's name?
I don't.
I want to say it was Larry.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it was Larry. 'Cause, Mike and I were just taken so by surprise by this that we failed in making proper notes. And the guy introduced him and said, and I'm with the OSDM. Mike?
Oracle Security Data and Management.
So suddenly I'm getting a call, I guess the term in-game, and it's the OSDM, and they're saying, I believe you just received a phone call. And I said, yes, and that I would like you to know that that phone call never happened. And I was like, okay. And I think he made a reference to Darren and Clint, being under pressure or like having a lot of going on right now, and he wanted to let me know that phone call never happened.
Right.
And I said, okay, fine, I understand. And he said, no, I need to hear you say it. So we're clear. That phone call never happened. So I repeated, yes, I understand. The phone call I received just now never happened.
And I would just like to point out to the OSDM that Russell is saying all of this right now. I have nothing to do with it. So if there is hell to pay, it's all Russell right now.
Oh, great.
And remember, he is not a delicate flower.
Oh, suddenly we did this interview with them, and then suddenly they made the interview in game. So we still don't know where we stand with Tension Experience.
Yeah. And it's so incredible.
But leading up to that, I on earlier podcasts, Mike and I had discussed that we had tickets for Ascension, which is the live event running now in Los Angeles. It was the Tension Experience live event, which was sort of the end of Indoctrination, the beginning of a new portion of the story called Ascension. Later that day, after the interview, Mike had tickets to go see Ascension that night, and I had tickets for about a week later. I suddenly get a call letting me know that there had been a opening available, and the creators of the event wanted to know if I could attend that evening. So my ticket got moved up to a couple hours after Mike, all of a sudden. So I suddenly found myself attending Ascension that night, which, Mike, I had never really said this to you. I was so surprised that I think it set me up for Ascension so great, because I didn't have time to get nervous. I didn't have time to overthink anything. I didn't have time to review any information. I literally went, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And then literally I had to basically hop in the shower and get ready to go to Ascension. So
and then spend how many texts and phone calls and emails to me, like, I haven't gotten in the location yet. What should I do?
I think I only sent 2 or 3 of those. Yeah, because I didn't get the email that, they said, oh, we'll email you. And then apparently something glitched, because when they said, oh, we did send an email, and I checked junk, I checked everything, and for some reason it didn't come through. So they called me to give me the location and the information that I was supposed to get. But I so appreciate the fact that they, that opening became available, and they made room for me. And, thank you to Darren and Clint. I'm sure that came from them. It meant a lot to go on the same night with you, Mike, even though we were not in the same group. Like, just the fact that I went that same night with so many other people who'd been following Indoctrination for so long.
Yeah, like everyone that first night were active people in the community. So being able to go through everything, and then all of us meeting up afterwards.
Right, because we all met at a nearby watering hole. And it was awesome to be able to talk it over and share the experience. And it means a lot to me that the creators of the show reached out and gave me that opportunity. It made it very, very special.
I think they did that because they knew I was going to tease you for the next week.
Probably. I think that was probably the main reason they would have done it.
But getting back to that day, so Ascension started a few days earlier. I think they were more like test runs. So yeah. That Saturday that we all went was the first like public going or experience, I guess. And all of that stuff happened with Russell, and we joked about how it's not over. Well, between the podcasts and all of those phone calls, there was a Periscope, and it showed Addison in her white dress being led through the warehouse and being led to a bathroom, and there was a shower running, and then one of the attendants brought in a red dress, and the Periscope was titled Transformation.
You failed to mention the beginning of that Periscope, which I think is key. And it showed a door, and it showed Addison in a very, very dark room as if she were just being woken up. And when she stood up, and she was wearing the white dress, which we have seen her in before, just a couple of days before, at the sort of like the tribute mixer sort of thing where she was taken away. It was that dress, and she was covered in blood.
Yeah.
And that's why she was being led to the shower, obviously. And that Periscope was so bizarre to me, because the fact that we had seen her in that dress the last time that we'd seen her at a live event, and then she woke up in blood, and she seemed a little bit disoriented, like she was just waking up from sleeping, basically, and then given obviously given the red dress and left. That was the end of the Periscope.
Yeah. And that it just the story being told with Addison from Wednesday to Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the last time we saw Addison, she was being carried away by OSDM, and now we see her. You know, what happened in that time? Like,
whose blood?
Yeah, was she reprogrammed? Like, was she brainwashed? I mean, many people would think yes. I would like to argue those thoughts sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the next time we see her, you know, she is there and she's not trying to get away. She's not yelling, you know, she's there following orders, it seems, like unspoken orders, and being led to this new dress. And I feel like this new dress is kind of like, okay, like this is your promotion.
It's the uniform.
Yeah. Well, yeah, uniform. But, you know, did you notice like all of we'll talk about Ascension in a minute, but within Ascension, there are other attendants in white dresses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were the Addisons before, or now. What Addison was before, they are now.
Mm-hmm. Quite possibly.
So
yeah, it was a very dramatic beginning to going to Ascension. So that happened, and then literally we're thrown into the live event, and everything that we just described in that Periscope somehow played out or had an effect, or at least influenced your interpretation of the live event.
Right. And what a live event it was. Like, holy crap. You know, like, because this is going on indefinitely, obviously we won't give spoilers, but this is I think most of us became speechless afterwards.
Yes, I
because
agree.
It was so incredible. It's so ambitious. Like, everything about it was beautiful. You know, the immersiveness, the haunt elements thrown in.
The design of the rooms was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah, like there's thinking about it now, I can't wait to go back because there's so much I know I didn't see. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much that I didn't see it, like I saw it. It's more like I didn't register. Because
we were both so excited.
Yeah, going that first time, you're trying to take everything in and you know, okay, oh, what's this? And okay, we're told we should explore. Okay, I'm going to explore, and you know, you kind of have tunnel vision in a way. And the next time I go back, I'm so excited to just be there and just look and take it all in. And this is an immersive event to end all immersive events, I think. It's
amazing.
That incredible. And, you know, I know there's a lot of people have been referencing Sleep No More and Then She Fell. You know, that's Darren's inspiration for a lot of this. I've never gone, but as someone who has gone, you've gone to both of those. Can you see those elements, and where does this, like, how does this even compare, if it even can?
Absolutely. I see the elements. I see the influences. I think the difference here is it's a led event. You are led through this event. You are directed where to go. Sleep No More is more of a go find a corner and look at stuff and do your own thing. This is an event which you're guided through. The influences are there. However, this is also so much more in the fact that they introduce other elements, and there are haunt-like elements to this, Mike. Like, you and I both have discussed a little bit about certain things that we wonder about the general public. That it might. I'm happy to hear that I don't think they're getting as many safe words called, because I think this is an intense enough event that it warrants a safe word.
Right. It will push you out of your comfort zone. And
Absolutely.
That's the point.
You will be uncomfortable during this, I think, emotionally and psychologically, and at times physically. So that's different than Sleep No More and Then She Fell. That the fact that they are so aggressive And look, we've talked about this. Mike and I are familiar with the characters and familiar with the stories. If you enter this event cold, I think the way that this will play out, and Mike, I want your input on this, because several people have asked me at work, like, well, I mean, should I go do this? I don't know anything, and you've been following it. I think the way this would play out is it would play out almost like a mystery, in the fact that if you went in cold, you'd be introduced to the concept that there is an organization, and that organization is preparing for something, and that you may be part of it. Either you're going to be indoctrinated, or you're going to be recruited, or you're going to be tested to see if you're worthy of something. So I think that it's going to unfold in a mystery vibe. Do you think that's the way it would occur?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if I was cold going in and not knowing who like Addison was, or, you know, any of the Easter eggs that we saw, I would just go in and be like, oh, it's this organization. They want me to join their organization because it's not a cult.
Which feels cult-like, but...
Yeah, it's not a cult. It's an organization.
That's true.
Right, Atticus? But, yeah, because names don't matter. You know, if I go in and I see this girl in a red dress, like, oh, she's in a red dress, everyone else is in a white dress, oh, she must be important. She must be the leader. You know, that's how I think most people would look at it.
I think you're right.
So not knowing anything doesn't matter. And they created it specifically for that.
Okay, that's why I went there, is because of what you just said. Because, you know, if anyone listening to this podcast thinks that they don't know enough to spend the money on the ticket and to make the effort and go and be part of this, do it. It is worth it. It is a unique event. You used the word ambitious earlier, Mike. That is the tribute I have to give this thing, because they went for something so unique, and there's so many elements to this, and there's so many moving parts to this, that I don't care if you've seen Sleep No More or Then She Fell. I don't care if you've seen other immersive pieces, and including other immersive pieces with multiple rooms and treks, which we've done both of those things. So this is something unique. It is aggressive, and I don't want to scare people with that word. I just want to acknowledge that they want to make you uncomfortable, and they want to make you think and be very, very present at everything that's going on. And they push buttons. They ask you awkward, uncomfortable questions. They put you in situations where you witness very uncomfortable conversations between characters. Mm-hmm. And you have to figure out what you're supposed to be doing, or what your reaction is going to be to that. So this is not passive theater in any way. This is something so much more. And in my opinion, from me, this is the thing that LA needs. This is the thing that LA has been yearning for, because I've talked to other people who've asked, why don't we have a Sleep No More? Why don't we have a Then She Fell? Well, this is not in those categories, other than the fact that it's a huge, ambitious, immersive piece. This is something more in your face. This is something more pointed toward who are you in your daily life and what makes you comfortable and what makes you safe. Well, we're going to play with that. The fact that when you buy a ticket to this, they ask you about your fear. And for me, and I've heard several other people say this, their fear showed up.
Right.
Did yours?
I mean, technically, I gave a half-assed answer to that. And not a half-assed answer, but it was more of like an open-ended, like philosophical type of answer.
Interesting.
It wasn't like snakes or spiders. It was more like, I felt like a hippie answering it, kind of.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I know better for next time.
I gave them, you could probably guess what I gave them, Mike.
Snakes.
No, actually, I didn't give them snakes. Even though snakes are up there.
Remember that. Noted in Scope and Mirror.
Well, actually, spiders are worse for me. But my fear is a little bit, that I gave them, is a little bit generic. So what I did is I gave them like, look, seriously, for me, this is real. It sounds goofy, but I have this fear, and it's a common fear. But what I also did is I said very specifically, I said, this is how, like, it's not just that I'm afraid of this, it's like how it might be used. And, well, come to find out, Mike, you know that my fear is just part of the show.
Right.
It's like everyone who goes into Ascension is going to encounter the generic version of my fear. But at one point during the show, they amped up sort of the aggressiveness toward me, and what I realized is, oh my gosh, I am literally in the specific version of my fear. Now, I don't know if it was done deliberately for me.
Nothing is random.
Which they've said. But the fact that they really did go there. Like that, and I remember standing, or actually sitting at one point during the show, and literally my leg was just vibrating because it was like tapping my foot because I was so awkward and uncomfortable, and like I really, 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 really am uncomfortable right now. And that's the way it manifested itself. I started like tapping my fingers. I started tapping my heel. I was just so anxious because they were letting me linger in that. And it isn't that freaking wonderful?
Oh yeah. Well, even for me, there was a couple times where things were happening within a scene and I knew what was about to happen, even though I knew it was like, no, there's no way this can really happen. You know, like I know they can't do that. Like I know they can't do that. But the fact that they were still doing it, it messed with my mind. Because it's like, well, what if? Like, what if this is really a cult? Like, what if? And, you know, it's like, no, there's no way they can't do that. They can't do that. Well, there's no waiver. Or like, they can't. There's no way. But I kept thinking, like, the what ifs. And that got me so many times. Because you never know. And because we didn't know anything about what this was going to be, that let it open. It's like, okay, well, who did they get to do this? Like, what if this person is like some rogue crazy person that's like thinks it's real and is actually going to do what I think he's going to do? And yeah.
I just found this exceeded all of my expectations.
Same with me, because we talked privately, like, what is this going to be, and is it going to be any good? And
this could have very easily misfired. Mm-hmm. And I think it is a huge tribute to the crew and the cast and the creators that this didn't misfire. This is literally something so unique and creative that it has redefined boundaries, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
And I am like Mike, you know that I subscribe to, I think right now I have 5 theater subscriptions in this town. I see a lot of theater. I see a lot of pieces. This takes elements from every source and literally combines them in a manner that is mind-blowing. And I think you have to be willing to be uncomfortable and be challenged. And if you can get there, if you can allow yourself to be that, the rewards of this thing, and I mean rewards, just the emotional thrills that you get from, because you're going to witness dark stuff. You're going to witness uncomfortable situations when you go through this. Learn from it. Like, how do you feel? What are you experiencing? Be present. Like that, like when, you know, it's been a while since I felt that in an immersive piece. Well, actually, since the Speakeasy Society, actually. The challenges here are so good and so worth going through to get to the rewards.
And that's the thing. Like, I know what you're talking about based on rewards, but like on top of that, there are rewards for being there and noticing something or finding something.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So there's there's the rewards that Russell's talking about, and then there's like actual physical rewards that you can get and find. And,
engage.
Exactly.
Go and engage. And if one of the characters engages you, respond.
Don't be scared to talk. Don't be scared to look around. Like, that's what will make this show that much better for you, is if you play your part as well and you talk to people and you answer questions, you mingle and get out of your comfort zone.
I think that's the key, is like, I think everything, it's if you're asked a question, if somebody talks to you, be honest, give an honest answer, man. Like, that's where the rewards come from, I think. Wow, have we gushed enough?
Yeah, seriously. But I mean, but that says so much about the show, that we're still talking about this like this weeks later, and still, like, we can't wait to go back. And they've been posting on social media about new rooms they've added.
Right.
And it's like, what did we miss? Like, what's new? Like, oh my God. And, you know, we're making plans on what to look for, what to say, who to say it to, like, based on our next trip. You know, there's like, I have a notepad full of notes of like things I want to try next time, you know? And I think that now that we've gone through, we can do that, you know, because Darren actually said something in the interview where it's like, the first time you should just let it happen.
Right.
Don't try to alter anything. And then if you go through again, that's when you can try to change your role or your scenes and stuff.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I noticed stuff that I wish, you know, it's like the event was so powerful and so overwhelming in many ways, but and again, okay, I think we're like, I want to get into some specifics, but I don't want to spoil anything. Like, Mike, you and I have talked privately. There were 2 characters that I encountered very briefly, and I want to encounter them again. Because one of them was very brief, and even though it was brief, you know, like literally a guy walking up to me as I'm about to leave a room, you know, identifying me and saying, "I know who you are," and then giving me a piece of advice as I'm being pulled out of the room. That thing. And at the very end of my event, you know, encountering a character who I so want to reveal who this is, but Mike is just shaking his head, telling me not to.
Don't do it.
I had an angry encounter at the end of my show with a character that I have encountered once before, and I hate that guy. But Mike, I want to meet him again. It's like, because I just like I really dislike that character, and yet I'm utterly fascinated by who is that guy and what is his purpose and what, like, there's all those kind of hidden things. And I think even if you don't know the story, you're going to encounter that. You're going to meet the woman in the red dress, and you're going to want to know more about her, or you're going to meet the woman in the white dress, and you're going to want to know more about her. So, yeah, without really revealing anything, I'm boxing myself into a corner now.
Yeah, it's fun to watch,
because I so want to, like, yeah, like there was this look this one guy gave me that I withered, just like, you know, I don't know. It was like being stared down by a rabid dog. And I want to go back and I want to meet him again.
Of course you do.
You know, it's just like, what was behind that? You know, and it's like, and like the other character who, you know, and again, it was like I interacted with him for a couple of sentences, and then he showed up later in my night, Mike, and like really surprised. He scared the hell out of me, actually. So yeah, like, get me out of this, Mike. I'm literally just fumbling now with so many thoughts in my head.
But it's so fun.
I'm going back, obviously.
Yeah,
if you can't
we
tell.
both are.
Yeah, just absolutely going back.
Like we said earlier, it's not over. People that went through Ascension, some of them got an email from Bob Jones' email. Now, Bob Jones, if you don't remember, was the private investigator who I met with early on, who took a video of me and posted it on. Somehow it got doctored and ended up on Tension's Facebook. Still don't know what happened. But he was investigating the Church of Anarch, and there's a whole backstory on him. And then 4 somehow found him and did a hangman's puzzle with his name. And yeah, so he's been missing. But some people got an email from him, but it was of his wife using his email account. And what his wife sent was an article on the OOA, but it had all of Bob's notes on it. So I think those are clues for when we go back, possibly. Like looking into it, because it's cool to have a backstory, but does that make sense 2 weeks into Ascension to have a backstory for a character that's gone missing months ago? So there's got to be something with it.
Right.
There has to be.
Good question.
I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, if you go to the forums and do a search for Bob Jones or Gail Jones, you'll see that Thomas actually uploaded his email and the attachment, which is just super exciting that stuff like this is still happening, because we thought it would be over with Ascension starting.
All I can say to sort of bring this to a close is go see Ascension.
Yeah. And here's something. Remember how you had all those secrets on the last podcast and I kept making fun of you for it?
Yes.
I have secrets.
What?
And this is, well, not secrets, but this is something that really nobody knows about. And it's something that's very personal to me. So I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to let you read it, because if I do talk about it, it might make people's heads explode and cause all sorts of crazy theories happening, which shouldn't be there. This was just a cool thing that Tension did. So last weekend was my birthday, and Tension said happy birthday to me in a way that only they could. So I'm going to let you read the birthday message. And so I can't wait to hear your initial reaction once you read that.
Oh my God. So what I'm reading is a happy birthday message to Mike. Oh my God, this is such a positive message at the end. Wow.
Yeah. That's what I was waiting for.
Wow.
How cool is that?
Wow, Mike, that's shocking.
Yeah. So the fact that they went out of their way to send me a birthday message like that it's just mind blowing to me. You know, like the connections that were made because of this, and for them to remember like when my birthday was based on Ascension happening. And, you know, they have a gazillion things going on. Like, they don't need to remember my birthday, and they did, and sent me that message.
That's pretty damn awesome.
Like, that's incredible. So I just want to say thank you to Tension, because that was amazing. So thank you. It means so much. And for more information on the Tension experience and to purchase tickets for Ascension, which we cannot speak highly enough about, you can go to them on the web at thetensionexperience.com, on Facebook, The Tension Experience, on Instagram, _tension_experience, and on Twitter, _tension_exp.
I just keep wanting to grab people that I know would appreciate it and say, go see this. Go see this. You've never done anything like this. Go see this. This isn't just a thrill ride. This is important that people see this, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, and I mean, people are flying in from all over the world. And
yeah, literally, there are people flying in from other countries. You know, to do this.
Tonight our friend Lucas from Chicago is going through, and
right.
Our friend Jason from Vegas. Like, people are traveling to see this, and which says a lot to them since they've only been open 3 weeks.
Yeah, they've already had people from Texas.
Mm-hmm. And I think Megan is going tonight too. So,
oh, cool.
Minnesota.
Yeah, I cannot believe I'm going to say this, because it's I hate this phrase. This is a game changer.
It's true.
I hate that phrase, but
it's so true though.
It's appropriate for this. All right. Well, we should move on.
Yeah.
another immersive experience,
Oh yeah.
which I enjoyed the heck out of.
And you actually went twice
I've already been twice.
because you always try to one up me.
Yes. Creep LA.
Oh, I thought you were calling me a creep.
Well, if the black hat fits.
Oh, really? Oh my, at least you didn't say if the hood fits or something.
Well, okay, that would have been better. Creep LA. Creep LA is back. Mike and I went about a week ago, and it just so happened that Mike mentioned we have a friend in from out of town, Lucas from Chicago, and Lucas had tickets for last night. And suddenly my work schedule changed, and I was free at the same time that he was going through Creep. So I picked up a quick ticket and went with him last night, Mike. This event is worth going twice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like this is a really fun, immersive piece. You start, Mike.
This was one of the ones I was looking so forward to, just based on what they did last year, and they did not disappoint this year. You know, no sophomore slump, like none of that. It was as soon as you show up, it's just like, oh, I do not feel clean or right. I just feel creeped out, you know, because there's people, the attendants there, you know, getting people in line, checking you off. It's so unsettling, and it works so well. And they bring you in and you get a little taste and a little teaser, and then you can relax for a minute, but then you don't really relax because it's all part of it.
Yeah, and again, non-spoilery type stuff, but you're given a period of time before your show actually sort of begins. There's like a pre-show, I guess would be the way I would put it. And I'm going to encourage people, as Mike, you and I have in the past, you enter an environment where you have to interact with other patrons. It's sort of as if you're waiting in line.
Well, you don't have to, but we will recommend to interact, be talkative, pay attention to things going on around you. Because if you do, like we were just talking about rewards, like you will bear the fruits of those rewards, and you will see and hear things that no one else will.
I think I can give you a perfect example that won't be a spoiler. But what happened to me is Mike and I were sitting at a table waiting our turn to be called, and somebody walked by, and I noticed that they were really upset. So I walked over and just asked the guy, I said, you seem really upset. Are you okay? That unlocked about, I don't know, how long? Like 7 to 10 minutes worth of a sequence that just took place as we were sort of waiting to be called and up and line up for the show. And all I did was literally ask a guy, like, hey, are you okay? And it really unlocked something truly special.
That's so awesome.
And it just that simple act. And other people were doing things along that line as well. So all I can say is if you see a character, you see someone who might be a little odd in appearance or mannerisms, don't be afraid to ask a question. Check in and see how they're doing, or react to what they're doing. And sometimes they come up and they definitely interact with you as well. I had a lovely, lovely dance with a woman.
Yeah,
before.
I saw that. They put me on the couch and wouldn't let me leave when that was happening.
That was amazing. And I will say this, as Mike mentioned, I went back last night. She remembered me, and she remembered what we talked about.
That's awesome.
She asked me to tell her something, and she walked up to me last night, Mike, and she said, oh, you've come back. And I said, yes, I couldn't resist coming back. And she said, do you want to dance again? And I said, I can't refuse a dance from a lovely woman. I was like, so, she took it, and she said that she appreciated what I had shared with her last time, and she made reference to it. So she remembered definitely what I had told her. And she told me a story based on what I had told her. Like, she made up a little story, and she remembered it, and she referenced it last night to me. And it was awesome. Lucas got a chance to dance with her as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was one of the coolest things about that part. And I mean, like I said, the more outgoing you are and the more questions you ask, the more it's going to pay off for you. Because I usually am very, I wouldn't say shy when it comes to those situations, like in the past, but I was never really outgoing because there was always that blur of a line where it's like, can I talk to them? Like, how far should I go? And I mean, after going through tension, like all bets were off. I was like, I saw a girl, upset, and I was like, hey, what's wrong? Were they bullying you? Like, what's going on? What can I do? Should we go kill them? Like, I was just like,
really? That's where you went?
Well, I mean, yeah, but stuff like that. And she totally played off it, then there was like the other guy that kept walking around and staring, and I would just stare back.
Oh,
and it was a staring
he was
contest.
having fun with you. Yeah, I noticed that several times. And also, you got a really long, and actually I finished dancing with Sabine, and I was heading back to the table where you were sitting, and I didn't join you because you were having what looked like a fairly intense conversation with, is it?
Dahlia.
Dahlia, I'm sorry. Forgive me, Dahlia. Yeah, you were having this conversation with Dahlia, and I didn't interrupt that. I didn't want to interrupt that conversation, so I just went and found something else to do for a little while. So, yeah, you had quite a long interaction with her.
Yeah, and it's all because I was talkative.
Right.
So we can't stress this enough. When you go to Creep, be talkative. Talk to the people. And we've gotten so far into the weeds. What is Creep about this year, Russell?
That's true. When you enter this area, you should, and like I said, it's kind of like an area where they gather people before actually leading you into the show. There is a piece of art, which is a wonderful piece of art in my opinion, and there's a sort of a placard underneath. You should go read that placard when you're at Creep. Creep this year is about the artwork of someone named Erebus Berwick. And the story is, I'm actually going to read from their website for a second. In the 1970s, a controversial artist named Erebus Berwick set out to explore the dark side of humanity and express it through his art. In the process, unlocking something much deeper and more terrifying than he ever could imagine. In 1974, Erebus disappeared from public view, spawning a cult-like following in his absence, a following intent on spreading his legacy and sharing what he found in the dark. At the beginning of this, you are told a story that there was a final performance that Erebus Berwick gave. At that performance, he and several patrons disappeared. And that is basically where the story of Creep begins this year. And you are entering the mind of Erebus Berwick, this tortured artist, some may say, and the show lends itself to that vision. The rooms are very, very artistic in design and layout. It's as if you're walking into truly demented paintings. And there are several moments along the way where I think there's some very striking visuals. There is art on the walls inside some of the rooms. If you aren't totally freaked out by what's going on with the characters, I highly suggest you take a moment to appreciate the art on the walls. One portrait in particular, Mike, I want, and it's the one with the eyes.
Oh yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, there's one portrait in this haunt, this immersive theater piece, that I want that painting. It's beautiful. It's mesmerizing. I don't want to reveal too much of the story, but I think we've said enough. Just the fact that you're entering this artist's world.
Yeah, and I mean, we can say, I mean, you went twice. It's definitely doable to go multiple times and not have the same show.
There are multiple tracks that I had a couple of scenes last night that I know were available the first night, but I was on the wrong path, so to speak, through the show. So I got a couple of scenes last night that I did not get the first night. So yeah, it's something that your choices do influence. Sometimes you're led away, and 2 or 3 people get one small scene, or one person's led away. Our friend Lucas got a scene last night that I've never heard anyone else describe. When he told me what, because we were separated at the time, and I thought I knew where he was. And I said, "Oh, you must have been like talking to the man. Was there a mirror in the room?" And he said, "No, there was no mirror." I said, "Wait a minute, where were you?" He said, "I was talking to the guy, and he was asking me all these questions." And he described a scene that I've never heard anyone reference. So there's more to be unlocked here. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they try to get everybody in a group to get their own special scene.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
Because I was taken away a couple times when we went last week.
Yeah.
And when you get those special scenes, like where it's like one-on-one or a couple people, and it's so special.
Yeah, and they encourage you at the beginning of your entry into the show. They say, and they put it so well, Mike. They say, if you're led away into the darkness, go.
Right.
And I think that's a good way of looking at immersive theater. Is like if somebody leads you somewhere, go, because there's probably something kind of cool.
That's against everything my mother ever taught me.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I really, really highly recommend Creep. It's such a delight, man. It's like yeah, I don't know. There's something about entering another world, and that's the basic thing that we were talking about Ascension earlier. You enter completely another world, and nothing breaks it. And that's how I feel about Creep. Mm-hmm. It's like once you enter that doorway, like there is
like you're
nothing.
in it.
Yeah, it's like you're there, and even if you're sort of waiting for your line to form, or if you're taking a picture. And they do have a picture kiosk in that first area. Highly recommend getting your picture taken. You're in the world, and I love that about Creep.
Anytime a production can make me feel that way, it's just so incredible and adds so much to my experience and just to the story. Because it's really hard a lot of times to get involved. Like if you're walking through, a maze and it's rednecks. Like I don't really think I'm in like the
Right.
deep woods of Louisiana, but when you're in this strange, dark warehouse that's supposed to be someone's mind, like you can actually be in that person's mind.
And if these are followers of Erebus Berwick, this twisted artist, what is their intention?
Right.
Bringing his art to life or bringing you into his art? Who knows? Like there's so many interpretations to this. I had to laugh last night. My group was a little like, I don't know if people didn't show up or what, but my group was a little smaller, and there were two women with us and it's the kind of funny, they never wanted to be separated, so Creep went for them.
Yes.
And separated them like you could see that, like, oh, you don't want to be separated? We are so separating you two, because that's what will make you the most uncomfortable. And at one point, like at the very end, you know how Creep ends, Mike? We all wound up in the same corner at the same time near the ending. And one of those women looked at me and very sincerely, like, "Oh, we lost you. Are you okay?" Completely serious. Like she was really concerned. And I realized, oh, wow, that's one of the reasons, because she was concerned about when one of the guys was led away. And I'm like, oh, wow, she's really concerned. And I thought, isn't that wonderful that Creep had that effect on her? She wanted, like, she was enjoying it. I mean, she was not scared in a bad way. She was obviously enjoying herself. But the fact that she said that to me, like, oh, are you okay? We were part of a group. We were going through together. We were doing this, and yet we each got our own little special scenes. She didn't have the enthusiasm that you and I might have, but she was completely 100% into it. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
It was like, oh my gosh, you really care. It was this moment, it just like, and then we literally as a group sort of bonded through that very last hallway, and it was just like, it was awesome. It was just like, it was very touching, I think, to see that Creep had that effect on someone. Highly recommend Creep, man.
Yeah, I need to go back.
I think you should.
It's that good.
Yeah, I think you should, and you will get other scenes, I'm sure.
I can't wait. For more information on Creep, you can check them out on the web at creepla.com, on Facebook, Creep Los Angeles, on Instagram and Twitter, Creep Los Angeles as well.
So last podcast, Mike, you brought up Box of Dread. And I was curious, I guess would be the way to put it. Well, I went on their website, and of course, the next box of Dread was Trick or Treat themed.
Yes.
And immediately I had to buy the freaking thing. I was like, damn it, Mike.
That's so awesome. We did our job.
So yeah, I really like the movie Trick or Treat a lot. The character of Sam, who is that evil little kid character, I really like. I just like that movie. And so Box of Dread is a box of stuff, cool stuff that you can subscribe to and get sent every month. And the Trick or Treat box came.
Yeah, mine came yesterday too.
And it was just it's kind of cool. I got to admit, I'm really happy I did it. I think the main thing is there's this pin in it.
Yeah.
That is just like, and I'm not a pin collector. I'm not. It's just that's like I've worked for Disney for so many years. I have encountered so many pin collectors in my career. So literally, I have had people like, would you buy me this pin from the company store because I think it's only available at the company store? It's like I've had people do that to me over the years.
Yikes.
So there are people who are serious about pin collecting, but yeah, there's this cool. How would you describe that face?
It's Sam's unmasked face.
But in pin form.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like 2 inches high and probably
Yeah.
an inch or inch and a half wide. Like it's so big it needs 2 pins in the back.
Yeah, and then there's a little Sam action figure, and there's a couple small posters there. Like there's a comic book with a limited edition cover. It's an Evil Ernie comic book. If people who might know that character.
It's signed.
Signed and with a certificate of authenticity. Mm-hmm. That alone is probably more valuable than I paid for the box.
Yeah.
You know, plus it's got Trick or Treat stuff, which I really, really like and is really cool. So yeah, I'm really glad that you pointed that out because it's something that I was like vaguely aware of, but didn't never checked out.
Yeah, I'm excited. If Sam and Trick or Treat was for September, like what's going to be October?
Good question.
You know, you have a horror box and you're teasing October with something like Sam and Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
Like October's got to be good.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy I got it. So
Good.
thank you for bringing that up.
I'm glad.
So.
You're welcome.
And the Box of Dread information.
Boxofdread.com on the web, Facebook, Box of Dread, and on Instagram and Twitter, Box of Dread.
Now, we've done something else recently, Mike.
Yes, Russell, we have.
Why?
Why? What?
Because it was your birthday.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Happy birthday, man.
Thanks. It was last week.
I know. But happy birthday.
Thanks. You already said it. But yeah, we mentioned earlier, based on Tension's birthday message, that it was my birthday last weekend. And as a birthday present, Debbie got me a overnight stay at the haunted Queen Mary. And Russell and Jake came for dinner and for a paranormal investigation tour. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty cool. The tour, we got to go to places of the ship that were really haunted, like the engine room and the pool and the changing area. And if you didn't have equipment, the host would lend you his. And it was just really fun, and time flew. Like it started late, like 10 or 11 o'clock. But by the time 4 o'clock in the morning came and the tour was over, it was like, oh, wow, it's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, the tour was over, like, good solid over 3 hours.
Yeah.
Plus there was, like, talk beforehand, talk after. Yeah, it was a solid night on the Queen Mary, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was so rad. And, I mean, you had some weird things happen.
Well, it actually started with Jake. Jake has an excited face.
His escape room face.
His escape room face. We kid Jake about his enthusiastic escape room after pictures. So I basically you're given an introduction. They introduce some of the equipment that you can use and that they're going to loan you. And then, Mike, you had some of your own equipment. And I deliberately just wanted to go through with my phone and record some audio here and there because I had never really spent any time on the Queen Mary other than as part of the haunt, the Queen Mary Dark Harbor. So I sort of wanted to be unencumbered to some degree. So there's you get the information, some of the information about the possible spirits that are there, and they let us down into the engine room area, and then we're basically told, look, we're going to give you half hour or 40 minutes or so. Go explore, go look for stuff, go record something, go just spend some quiet time somewhere. And at that point, right around the time that the crowd was about to break up, Jake walked over to me. One of the things that they had were dowsing rods. Mike, I'm trying to remember where I have had dowsing rods before in my hands. And I think, if I remember correctly, there's sort of like a tourist stop on Route 66 where, because dowsing rods are sometimes used to find water or something like that, I was instructed like how to use a dowsing rod. It did nothing for me. It's like I didn't get it. I didn't feel it. I didn't understand it. I was like, because you see it in movies, and I know for a fact that people have used them for years, but I didn't get them. So Jake walks over, and one of the things is he had several sets of dowsing rods because dowsing rods are sensitive to energy, supposedly. And so Jake walks over to me, and he had a pair of dowsing rods in his hand, and he was just lit up. It was like, dude, like I was like, this is like these things are going crazy. And so he handed them to me. It's like, you try it. And the thing with the dowsing rods is you sort of have to level them, like reset them. And as soon as I got them in my hands and I reset them, they went crazy. Like moving back and forth, all kinds of things. And that's what Jake was responding to. And you're supposed to ask specific questions. You know, like if this is the spirit of so-and-so, cross the dowsing rods or something along those lines. So, you know, I said to Jake, I said, wow, that's really interesting. I don't know, you know, but I see what you mean. He said, you can feel them being moved, which you could. And it was definitely not me moving them. It wasn't my angle or anything.
Right. And we all stood in the same place because after you did that, you gave them to me to try. And we all stood in that same spot and each had different things happen. Like
right.
For me, I had put my recorder down there was like a shelf next to me. And as soon as I leveled them and I asked the questions, both rods just went to the left and pointed and actually hit the recorder. Mm-hmm. Whereas you guys asked questions, they crossed. So yeah. It's interesting that we both had different things happen with them. So it kind of debunks the whole like, oh, well, it's this or that because they're all different.
The most interesting thing for me was I asked the question because we'd been told the name of John was the name of the spirit in that area. So I said, if this is John, please cross the rods. Nothing happened. I said, oh, if there's someone here who is not John, you know, please, I think I said, move the rods apart. And immediately they moved apart. So like, okay, well that's, and skeptic me is still there. Like, okay, that's really weird, but I could believe it would be something I'm doing, but it kept happening. Because I asked questions like, oh, if you're not John, did you know John? If yes, please cross the rods. They immediately crossed. So I was getting very specific movement the moment I asked a yes or no question. So it's one of those things like you choose to believe what you choose to believe, but there was something going on with the energy in that area. And I don't know if you talked to Jake about this, but later on he went down to the very first spot where he felt it, and it was still going on. And unfortunately, I'm drawing a blank on the guy who hosted the tour. He walked by and Jake said, like, there's something going on here. And the guy said, oh, well, ask specific questions. Ask this. Ask maybe this. And the moment that guy started talking and all of it stopped happening, it was as if we had been interrupted or Jake had been interrupted.
Weird.
So, and Jake looked at me and like the guy went, you know, just like move around a little bit, try to find it again. And the guy walked away and Jake looked at me like, it's gone. Like I can absolutely feel that it's gone. So whatever Jake had been feeling when Jake kind of broke the energy and was asking questions of the host, like it just dissipated completely. And it never came back in that area again. So,
well, spirits want common courtesy. They don't want people to be rude and interrupt a conversation to talk to someone else.
Oh, but yeah, that was interesting. It was interesting for me. I also went back, Mike, because what I did, I was recording on my phone while I was asking those questions, just to see if I heard anything, and I did not. There's nothing on my phone recording that I can hear. But, last night I stayed up late because I knew we were going to be recording this podcast, and I listened to the group recording where all of us were together, and we were each given opportunities to answer questions or ask questions of the spirit. And I got nothing in there, but the one that I was most interested in was the one where I was asking the specific questions of, are you John? If you're not John, did you know John? And I hear nothing on those recordings. How about you?
There's things that are questionable that I need to amplify and put into a program to hear better. But there are some things that I hear, but I can't tell whether or not that's anything.
Right.
So I wouldn't say yes, but I wouldn't say no. I need to look into it more.
Unfortunately, the recording of me asking those questions, you hear a group that was about 15, 20 feet away from me, and you can hear them whispering.
Yeah, and that's what's tough on an investigation like that when there's that many people, because usually, investigations are like a couple people. That way you don't have to worry about someone that's 10 feet away whispering. But, it was still fun. It was cool to see parts of the ship that we never saw because we've only been to Dark Harbor.
The boiler room.
Yeah.
That was amazing. It's just, it was one of those weird moments for me. It's, first of all, incredibly peaceful.
Yeah, there's no sound.
Yeah, that's definitely the part of the factor. You're basically at that point you're underwater, so it's this cavernous room, and I didn't even realize how cavernous until I started roaming around quietly and looking up and like, wow, that ceiling is so high, and just so peaceful feeling to me, like to the point where I was taken aback at, like, I could have stayed there for a long time.
Oh yeah, me too.
Everyone was being very, very quiet and respectful of each other, and it just you are going into areas of the ship that people don't normally see, but there was something about that area that just I wanted to linger there for some reason. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did. Thank you for coming, Jake. Thank you for coming, Debbie. Thank you for orchestrating it and for the present. It was awesome.
Like I said earlier, Mike, my experience with the Queen Mary has always been through Queen Mary Dark Harbor, The Haunt. So this was interesting to me. And also, I've done very little of the paranormal investigation stuff. And, you've taken me, or because of you, I've been involved now in a couple of them. And I do find them very interesting. And one thing I'd like to point to about this one that Jake also commented to me later about was he liked the fact that he didn't feel like the tour was pushing an agenda.
Right. That's one thing I definitely was into, because if you remember last year, we went on a ghost hunt for my birthday, and it was like, oh, this fly just came in. It's a ghost. Like, oh, my flashlight just turned off. It's a ghost. And this was like, there's very like, well, that could be this, or this. So if you eliminate all of those things, then maybe it could be something paranormal.
Yeah, they were very willing to be slightly skeptical here. It's like, well, it's like, okay, if you think that is a paranormal something, we have to eliminate all the other logical possibilities first, and then let's talk about it. So I did enjoy that aspect of this tour, definitely.
Yeah, and while we were on the ship, we took other tours. There's so much there, and you can go to the ship and walk freely among most of the public areas, and they have like ghost sighting signs and stuff like that. So that was really cool, and just hearing about the history of the ship with some of the audio tours and stuff. It's a good time. There's a ton of information that you can get while you're at the ship, and I definitely recommend it. It was a really cool experience to stay there and to experience all of that. So yeah, check it out. Go to queenmary.com, and there's tons of information on the site, and go to the tours section and look at all the tours. They have another paranormal tour, or a ghost tour, I think, but I believe it's being worked on, and that's not so much an investigation. I think they just take you to the haunted places and put special effects to enliven the area. That about wraps up this episode.
I think so, yes.
We have a couple shout outs for some people, though. Thank you again, everybody that writes us, tweets us. It really means a lot. So first one is Kyle. He wrote to us and gave us info on Dystopia, which is happening in New York, and a bunch of other cool things. And Kyle, if you go, definitely let us know how it is. We want to hear, because I don't think we'll be able to get out there this year. And then Nicola from Switzerland. My haunt life is worldwide.
Apparently.
Like, how rad is that? But he's like just messaging us back and forth about things, and it's so awesome, and it's cool to have like that kind of communication with people that don't live in the U.S. and just about everyone's so excited about haunts everywhere, and it's cool to geek out with people. But he's actually coming to LA in a couple weeks, and he's going to be able to do a bunch of stuff like Delusion and Tension and all the things that we are excited about. Like, he's going to be able to do, and like, I'm so excited. And definitely let us know what you think about that as well. And also Matthias from Belgium. Another worldwide connection. But he's coming to LA in January and going to try to experience some stuff. Hopefully there's some off-season stuff going on. But he actually does a bunch of extreme haunts over in Europe. And he has a website called europehaunts.wordpress.com. And he writes about his experiences with some of the haunts over there. So, for example, he's done Cracked, which is the 6-hour endurance extreme haunt. Which are going to be doing a collaboration with Heretic next year. So he's done that, and he wrote a review on it. So check out his website. It's really cool if you want to get some information on stuff happening outside of the United States. It's really cool to read, and just how different they are and how similar at the same time they are.
Somebody else was David, who is also yet another person who is coming to Los Angeles and going to be able to do Delusion and the Tension Experience, Ascension. He's actually from Florida, and he is someone who sent us a really nice message. He's a former haunter himself. It was just really nice to hear from someone who our podcast, sort of re-inspired, he said, some of his interest in haunts, etc. And I'm so glad that he's able to come to Los Angeles and experience some of what we get to do. And another person, Tim is local, sent me a really nice email, Mike. And it was a really fun email in the fact that, he saw the Blackout Experiments documentary. And I think that's why he sent the message directly to me, because he said, I didn't relate to it. And he said, like, I wasn't sure who these people were. And then in the email, he said, I kind of realized I was listening to My Haunt Life, and suddenly I have tickets to Bardo Thodol, and I have tickets to Devoted, and he realized that, oh, wait, I'm these people.
One of us.
Exactly. So he sent this really nice email, like, at first I didn't relate, and now, like, and he's someone who has done haunts. And he said, I used to go to all this stuff alone, and the connection he made with My Haunt Life is like, oh, there's other people doing the same explorations. So I thought that was a really nice message to get from Tim, and thank you guys for reaching out and expressing that, because I and now Mike and I have reached the point where we are hearing from people from other countries and things like that, and it's exciting for us to hear what they're interested in and what you guys are finding interesting around this area or across this country.
Yeah, so thank you again so much. If you want to contact us, feel free. You can find us on the web at myhauntlife.com, on Facebook, My Haunt Life, on Twitter, My Haunt Life, and you can email us directly at mike@myhauntlife.com or russell@myhauntlife.com with 2 S's and 2 L's.
So I guess that wraps it up, right?
Like a present.
Okay, so thank you so much for listening. This is Russell.
And this is Mike.
Thank you again.
All right, we're rolling. Can you talk real quick?
Hi, this is Russell.
Cool.
And welcome to yet another thrilling episode.
Oh my God.
Of
Stop.
My
Stop.
Haunt
Stop.
Life. No?
All right, are you ready now for real?
Yeah, I'm ready for real.